Your brain is your most powerful asset, but if you don't train it, it will be your biggest liability. You're not losing in life because of lack of opportunity. You're losing because of untrained thinking. Most people confuse movement with progress. They think if they're working hard, they must be getting somewhere. But here's the truth. Effort alone doesn't guarantee results. Just because you're busy doesn't mean you're effective. You can dig all day with a spoon, but you're not building a foundation. You're exhausting yourself. That's why thinking in terms of results is a mindset shift that separates average performers from elite achievers. It's the difference between hustle and harvest. When your brain is conditioned to prioritize effort, you start taking pride in how much you do, not in what you actually accomplish. You'll say things like, "I'm grinding," or "I'm putting in the work," but when someone asks, "What have you produced?" there's silence. That's not success. That's addiction to effort. Real winners measure progress, not sweat. They're not just concerned with activity, they're obsessed with outcomes. You don't get paid for trying. You get paid for solving problems. The world rewards results. If a surgeon attempts to operate but fails, there's no bonus check for effort. If a lawyer fights a case but loses, the client doesn't say, "Well, at least you tried." The world doesn't care how hard you worked if you didn't deliver. And your brain must be trained to think the same way. Training your brain to focus on results means you start asking better questions. Instead of "How hard do I have to work?" you start asking, "What would make this work produce the result I need?" That one shift takes you from aimless action to strategic execution. It forces you to evaluate what matters and eliminate what doesn't. Most people stay stuck not because they lack talent, but because they are loyal to ineffective routines. They do the same things over and over because those things feel productive. But feelings lie. You can feel like you're getting somewhere and still be stuck in the same cycle. That's what happens when you're trained to measure effort. Your brain gets addicted to the sensation of working hard without evaluating if that work is actually moving you forward. Thinking in results makes you ruthless with your time. It makes you intentional with your choices. It makes you evaluate every meeting, every task, every conversation through the lens of what's the outcome I'm trying to create. And if it doesn't move the needle, you cut it out. Because when your goal is results, everything else becomes secondary. This mindset also builds clarity. People who focus on effort often stay confused. They don't know if what they're doing is working. They're tired but unsure. But when you're focused on results, you know there's evidence, there's progress, there's traction. And when you see traction, you gain momentum. You start to believe differently, act differently, and demand differently from yourself and from the world around you. Effort-based thinking is often rooted in the desire to feel good about yourself. You want to feel like you're trying, even if you're not succeeding. But results-based thinking is rooted in growth. It's not about how you feel, it's about what you've built, what you've changed, what you've accomplished. It doesn't care if you're tired, it cares if you've advanced. And when you embrace this mindset, your entire life gets sharper. You become results, driven in your finances, your health, your relationships, your business. You stop making excuses and start making adjustments. The other problem with effort-first thinking is that it tricks you into thinking you're a victim of your work. You say things like, "I'm doing everything I can," but deep down, you know you're not doing the right things. That's the illusion of effort. It keeps you in emotional safety while robbing you of effectiveness. But when you think in results, you stop hiding behind how hard it feels. You start facing the facts. Is what I'm doing actually working? If not, why am I still doing it? Thinking in results also means taking full ownership. You don't get to blame the system, the economy, the algorithm, or the audience. You say, if I didn't get the result, I missed something. I need to adjust, evolve, or improve. That kind of accountability is uncomfortable, but it's the birthplace of power. People who think in results learn faster. They're not emotionally attached to a strategy. They're committed to the outcome. If something doesn't work, they don't waste time sulking. They pivot, revise, and try again. Because their loyalty is not to the process, it's to the product. And that's what makes them powerful. So don't train your brain to feel satisfied just because you worked hard. Train it to feel satisfied when your work produced impact. You weren't put here to just be busy. You were put here to be effective. The people who change the world aren't the ones who sweat the most. They're the ones who produce what matters most. If you don't see it in your mind first, you'll never hold it in your hand. Success begins in the imagination before it shows up in reality. Your life moves in the direction of your most dominant mental pictures. What you repeatedly visualize becomes what you unconsciously chase, and eventually what you create. This isn't hype, it's a law of human behavior. Your brain operates like a GPS system. It needs a clear destination before it can start rerouting your decisions and actions to get there. Without that destination, you're just wandering, working hard but going nowhere. Most people let their imagination work against them. They constantly replay what went wrong, what could go wrong, and what's never worked. They imagine failure, rejection, embarrassment, and then they wonder why they hesitate when opportunity knocks. They've trained their brain to expect defeat, so their mind resists success even when it's within reach. But you can reverse that. You can take control of your internal movie and rewrite the scenes until your future becomes familiar, until winning becomes your norm. Visualization is not about fantasy. It's about focus. It's not about pretending you're something you're not. It's about aligning with what you are becoming. When you visualize with intention, you give your mind permission to believe, and belief is what unlocks behavior. Because you will never act like someone you don't believe you are. The moment your mind accepts the picture as real, your habits start shifting to match it. You don't need special tools to visualize. You need daily discipline. It's about taking a few quiet minutes every single day and mentally rehearsing your success. Not vaguely, not generally, but in detail. What does it look like when you've built what you want? What does it feel like when you walk in that room, sign that deal, close that chapter, or win that battle? See the scene, feel the emotion, hear the words, smell the air. The more vivid it is in your mind, the more real it becomes in your body. Your brain starts to treat it as familiar, and what's familiar becomes safe, and what's safe you no longer resist. Every successful person you admire, whether they talk about it or not, uses this principle. Athletes run the game in their minds before they ever step on the court. Speakers walk through their delivery in silence before the mic is in their hand. Entrepreneurs see their future brand, their bank accounts, their business empire long before the world catches up. They're not surprised when success comes because they've already lived it over and over in their mind. When you visualize, you're creating a mental path for your feet to follow. You're telling your subconscious, this is where we're going. And your brain, wired to close loops, starts building new associations, spotting opportunities, and filtering information that aligns with your internal picture. Suddenly, what felt random becomes purposeful. What seemed out of reach starts showing up. It's not magic, it's the power of selective attention and intention. Most people drift because they never define. They don't see anything clearly, so they chase everything vaguely. But clarity attracts. When your vision is clear, your focus sharpens. You start saying no to distractions because they don't fit the picture you're building. You start moving differently because every move is a brushstroke on the canvas of your future. You stop settling because your vision makes mediocrity feel offensive. Visualization also builds confidence. When you've already seen yourself winning in your mind, fear loses its grip. You've rehearsed the victory. You've sat in the chair, you've made the call, you've crushed the presentation. So when the real moment arrives, your brain isn't panicking, it's executing. This is why visualization is a form of preparation. You're not just hoping things go well, you're preparing your nervous system to perform under pressure. Don't underestimate the simplicity of this. Most people ignore it because it sounds too basic, but success is built on small disciplines that compound over time. Visualizing every day might not look like much at first, but over weeks and months, you're literally rewiring your brain to align with your future. And a brain that's trained to see victory will resist anything that looks like loss. It will fight for the vision you've implanted, even when everything around you says it's impossible. So do it daily, lock in, close your eyes, see it, speak it, believe it. You're not escaping reality, you're creating it. Because what you consistently see internally, you'll eventually experience externally. The mind is a magnet. The clearer your picture, the stronger your pull. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself every single day. Your brain is a search engine. It takes whatever question you give it and hunts for an answer, whether that answer builds you up or tears you down. The problem is, most people ask disempowering questions and don't even realize it. They ask things like, why does this always happen to me? Or what if I fail? Or why am I not good enough? Then they wonder why they feel stuck, discouraged, or overwhelmed. It's because their mind is obeying the questions they're feeding it. The mind is obedient, not creative by default. It answers what it's told to answer. If you give it a weak question, it gives you a weak answer. Ask it why you're always behind, and it'll remind you of every mistake, every shortcoming, and every missed opportunity. But ask it, what's the fastest way for me to close this gap? And it starts thinking in solutions. It's not about fake positivity. It's about functional thinking. If you want better results, start with better questions. People who grow, elevate, and lead lives of impact are masters of intentional self-questioning. They ask forward, focused, growth-centered questions that challenge them to think beyond their current circumstances. Instead of asking, "Can I do this?" they ask, "How can I make this possible?" One implies doubt, the other invokes strategy. It's a small shift in language, but it creates a massive shift in direction. The questions you ask are the compass of your thoughts. They guide your focus, and where your focus goes, your energy flows. If your questions are rooted in fear, your energy drains. If your questions are rooted in vision, your energy rises. People don't lack energy. They waste it on the wrong focus. Asking better questions protects your energy by pointing your attention to what builds, not what breaks. Great questions also unlock creativity. Most people are stuck not because there's no solution, but because they haven't asked the right question to reveal it. Innovation doesn't come from answers. It comes from asking something bold enough to shatter limits. What if there's a better way? What would I do if I had no fear? What does this problem make possible? These are the kinds of questions that disrupt mediocrity and unlock genius. Your questions shape your identity too. Ask yourself every morning, what would the most disciplined version of me do today? and you'll notice your actions aligning with that image. Ask, what would the broke, scared version of me do today? And watch how quickly you shrink back into bad habits. Your brain is always listening. It doesn't just respond to the questions, it builds identity around them. In moments of difficulty, your questions become even more powerful. Pain will always show up, but the question you ask in the pain determines whether you grow from it or get stuck in it. Ask, why is this happening to me? And you become a victim. Ask, what is this trying to teach me? And you become a student. One question traps you, the other transforms you. When life squeezes you, your questions reveal your mindset. Even your relationships improve when your questions do. Instead of asking, why won't they change? Ask, how can I show up in a way that invites better behavior? Ask, what am I not seeing from their perspective? Or how can I communicate in a way that builds, not breaks? These kinds of questions bring clarity, empathy, and breakthrough, while the wrong questions only fuel conflict. People who win don't just ask questions when things go wrong. They ask them before decisions are made. Before they commit to something, they ask, what's the return on this decision? Does this align with my long-term identity? What does success look like in this area? They don't move off impulse. They move off insight, and that's the edge that keeps them ahead. You can't afford to let your thinking go unchallenged. Every time you notice fear, procrastination, comparison, or confusion creeping in, stop and ask, what story am I telling myself right now? And what's a better question I could be asking instead? This practice will rewire your thinking in real time. The shift is simple, but profound. Instead of asking questions that confirm your limits, start asking questions that challenge them. Instead of questions that reinforce your fears, ask ones that activate your faith. Instead of questions that keep you stuck in history, ask questions that pull you into destiny. Because once you learn how to ask better questions, you unlock better thinking, and better thinking always leads to better living. Most people procrastinate not because they're lazy, but because their brain has been trained to link more pain to action than to avoidance. In their subconscious wiring, the task feels overwhelming, the timing feels inconvenient, or the outcome feels uncertain, so the mind decides to delay. But here's the truth: procrastination is the silent assassin of greatness. It doesn't show up loudly, it whispers, it tells you later is better, but every later costs you momentum, confidence, and opportunity. And if you want to break free, you have to flip the pain. You have to train your brain to associate procrastination with loss and action with relief. The brain is designed to avoid pain and seek pleasure. That's its default setting. So when the mind interprets the task in front of you as painful, whether because it requires effort, courage, or uncertainty, it naturally seeks something easier. It turns to distractions. It finds comfort. It delays. But what you don't realize is that every time you postpone what matters, you deposit pain into your future. You're not escaping pain. You're rescheduling it. And often, it returns compounded. The secret is to reverse the association. You've got to train your mind to see procrastination as painful. You've got to feel the weight of missed opportunity, the sting of regret, the cost of delay. Because until procrastination feels more dangerous than doing the work, you'll keep putting things off. Your brain has to learn that not acting is the real threat, not the task itself. This isn't about guilt. It's about urgency. Think about how many dreams died not because people weren't gifted, but because they kept waiting. They waited until they felt ready. They waited for the right mood. They waited for perfect clarity. But clarity doesn't come before action. It comes through it. Waiting for perfection is just another form of procrastination dressed in productivity's clothing. And by the time most people realize it, the window has already closed. You have to get emotionally intense about this. You've got to feel what it really costs you every time you delay. Every time you avoid that project, you're reinforcing a habit of hesitation. Every time you scroll instead of start, you're teaching your brain that comfort is more valuable than calling. But when you begin to see that every hour wasted is an hour you'll never get back, procrastination stops looking safe, it starts looking expensive. And once you've trained your brain to see the pain of procrastination, you need to retrain it to associate action with pleasure. Action should feel like relief. The moment you take a step forward, you're no longer stuck. You're in motion. You're building momentum. That's how the winners win. They don't wait to feel like it. They move until the feeling catches up. They don't make decisions based on temporary comfort. They make them based on permanent growth. Start asking yourself, what's the real cost of me not doing this? Don't just think about the task. Think about the chain reaction. What happens if you don't make that call, send that message, finish that course, write that plan? What doors stay closed? What growth never happens? Who misses out on your gift because you chose delay over discipline? When the cost becomes personal, procrastination becomes unacceptable. You've also got to eliminate the idea that you have time. That's the biggest lie procrastination feeds on. I'll do it tomorrow, but the clock is ticking and time is indifferent. You either use it or lose it. There are people who would pay anything to have another day, another hour, another shot. And you've got that right now. So wasting it isn't just irresponsible. It's disrespectful to the potential you've been given. If you want to break procrastination, make it uncomfortable. Don't soothe yourself when you delay. Confront it. Feel the tension. Let the discomfort build until it drives you into action. And then reward yourself when you act. Even the smallest step forward deserves acknowledgement. This reinforces the new pattern. Pain in delay, pleasure in doing. Eventually, your identity begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries to get better and start seeing yourself as someone who takes action. You stop thinking like a procrastinator and start thinking like a producer. That shift changes everything, because when your identity changes, your habits follow. And when your habits change, your results transform. You can't beat procrastination by wishing. You beat it by rewiring your brain. You teach it that procrastination is costly, that delay is dangerous, and that progress is peace. Once your brain believes that, it stops resisting action and starts craving it. That's when you become unstoppable. Not because you never feel resistance, but because you've trained yourself to act anyway. Your mind is the control center of your entire life. Every decision, every reaction, every dream, and every doubt flows from what you've allowed to enter your mental space. And yet, most people guard their phones with passwords, protect their homes with locks, and monitor their bank accounts, while leaving their mind completely open and undefended. They allow toxic voices, pointless content, and energy, draining narratives to camp in their head rent-free, then wonder why their motivation is low and their direction is blurry. You cannot afford to be casual with your mind. Whatever enters it consistently will eventually shape your belief system, and your belief system is what dictates your behavior. If you allow fear-based thinking, comparison, driven content, and negativity from people who have no vision, you're not just consuming it, you're becoming it. Your thoughts are not neutral. They are either fueling your growth or feeding your doubt. Guarding your mind doesn't mean living in a bubble. It means being selective with what you consume. It means realizing that every video you watch, every conversation you entertain, and every article you read is planting seeds. Some of those seeds will grow into discipline, confidence, and clarity. Others will grow into confusion, procrastination, and insecurity. And you are responsible for which ones take root. The truth is, most people don't have a motivation problem. They have a contamination problem. Their inspiration gets drowned out by low-quality input. They wake up, and the first thing they do is scroll, already handing over the steering wheel of their thoughts to whatever headline or highlight reel appears first. And by the time they try to focus on their goals, their mind is already scattered, reactive, and unfocused. Not because they lack ambition, but because their inputs were never aligned with their desired output. Your mind is like soil. It will grow whatever you plant. Plant truth, and you'll grow confidence. Plant discipline, and you'll grow habits. But if you plant chaos, noise, and negativity, don't expect peace, clarity, or vision. You cannot harvest something you never cultivated. You must become the gatekeeper. You have to decide what's allowed to influence you, and that means drawing boundaries that protect your focus. There will always be voices trying to speak into your life. Some come through people, some come through media. Some come through your own past, but not all voices deserve volume. Just because someone is speaking doesn't mean they should be heard. Just because content is trending doesn't mean it should be consumed. Popular doesn't always mean profitable for your growth. You've got to learn to say no to what sounds good if it's not feeding what you're building. You also have to be aware of repetition. What you hear the most, you eventually believe. That's why advertisers don't care if you like the ad. They just want you to hear it enough times. Repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity becomes comfort, even if the message is destructive. That's why if you constantly feed yourself doubt, gossip, or defeatist language, you'll start to normalize it. But if you consistently feed your mind with empowerment, truth, and vision, you'll start to operate from strength, even in hard seasons. Protecting your mind also means protecting your environment. Who you surround yourself with is just as important as what you read or watch. Energy is contagious. If you're constantly around people who complain, delay, or downplay your goals, your thoughts will mirror theirs. But if you're around people who speak with purpose, think with clarity, and move with urgency, your mindset will rise to match their level. This kind of mental guarding requires discipline. It means unfollowing people who distract you. It means pausing conversations that drain you. It means deleting apps, setting limits, and being intentional with what you feed on mentally. That's not weakness, it's wisdom. Because once your mind is infected, your decisions follow, and that infection spreads into your habits, your relationships, and your results. The goal isn't to block out reality. It's to build an internal reality strong enough to filter everything through purpose. When your mind is clean, your vision becomes clearer. When your inputs are intentional, your outcomes become predictable. When your environment feeds your focus, your progress multiplies. So train yourself to ask, is this thought, this voice, this input, building me or breaking me? If it's not building, it's breaking. If it's not feeding your future, it's distracting from it. You're not just protecting peace, you're protecting potential. Guard your mind like it holds your future, because it does. You don't get what you want in life. You get what you believe you are. That's why identity always drives behavior. If you see yourself as average, you'll sabotage anything that makes you feel above average. If you see yourself as undisciplined, you'll resist every opportunity that demands focus. This is why success doesn't start with goals. It starts with identity. Until you decide who you are becoming, Every habit you try to build will feel like a costume you're wearing, not a character you've become. The most powerful decision you can make is to decide with intention who you are becoming. Not who you've been, not what your circumstances say, but who you're choosing to be, because once your identity is solid, your behavior aligns. You don't have to force action. It flows. You're not trying to change your life from the outside in. You're transforming from the inside out. Most people set goals without ever shifting identity. They say, I want to make more money, but still see themselves as broke. They say, I want to get in shape, but still think like someone who quits. They say, I want to grow, but still act like someone who doubts. That's why nothing sticks, because your brain will fight to stay consistent with who you believe you are. When identity and behavior conflict, identity always wins. This is why lasting transformation is identity-driven. You have to decide who you are now and act from that place. You start speaking like that person. You start making choices like that person. You start showing up like that person. Not just when it's convenient, but until your mind rewires itself to match your new standard. It's not about pretending. It's about practicing. Think of it like this. You're not trying to become disciplined. You are disciplined. You're not hoping to be confident. You are confident. Even if your actions don't match yet, your decision leads. You show up as the version of you that's already living the life you're building. And the more you move from that identity, the faster your environment starts catching up. This shift changes how you respond to everything. When challenges show up, you don't react like your old self. You respond like your future self. You ask, how would the version of me who's already leveled up handle this? That question alone reroutes your behavior, because you're not navigating based on feelings. You're navigating based on identity. Identity doesn't wait for evidence. It creates it. People who win don't wait until they feel successful to act successfully. They move in faith. They move with clarity. They move as if the outcome is already done. That mindset pulls results into reality. It tells your brain, this is who we are now, so act like it. When you decide who you're becoming, it also kills the need for external validation. You stop asking for permission to be great. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable, because you're not becoming someone for applause. You're becoming someone for alignment. It's not about being seen. It's about being solid. You also stop negotiating with distractions. When your identity is locked in, you don't need willpower to say no. You say no because it doesn't match who you are. That's why discipline isn't hard for people with strong identity. It's automatic. They're not resisting things. They're rejecting what doesn't belong in their story. You become less emotional about discomfort too. When you know who you are, pain doesn't break you. It builds you. Because you're not measuring progress by how you feel. You're measuring it by how aligned you're becoming. You're not chasing ease. You're chasing evolution. The truth is, you've already been acting from an identity, whether you chose it or not. You've been moving from your story, your experiences, your past labels. But now, it's time to take the pen back. It's time to create the blueprint instead of reacting to the background. Who you were is not who you have to be. Your past is not your personality. Your potential is not a theory. It's a decision. So ask yourself, who am I becoming? Not what do I want, but who do I need to be to live the life I'm called to live? Decide that version. Get clear, get specific, and then align your actions with that identity every single day. When you lead with identity, success becomes inevitable because you're not faking it. You're finally walking in it. The world doesn't respond to your potential. It responds to your patterns, and your patterns come from your programming. So the question isn't can you succeed? The question is, are you training your brain too? Because once your mind is trained for victory, everything else follows. Your habits shift. Your standards rise. Your outcomes multiply. Train your brain, and your life will catch up.